riding free. Yeah. So good, so good, looking so good. We the perfect fit. So good, looking so good. So good, looking so good. We the perfect fit. So good, looking so good. So good, looking so good. We the perfect fit. So good, looking so good. So good, looking so it shining bright. I love the way you work it. I love the way you work it. I love the way you work it. I love the way you work it out. I love the way you work it. I love the way you work it. I love the way you work it. I love the way you work it out. I can see her in the moonlight, sipping her drink, slow motion, making sweet moves on the dance floor. She blows my mind, I want more. She be standing, I be right on. I never felt so insecure. I think I don't see, keep on walking. I gotta play a sweet game.
At Orange OpenTech, we unleash what makes us human. Because innovation begins with people, with ideas that connect, with networks that adapt, with technology that steps back, so that humans can step forward. We unleash imagination, connection, and collaboration. At Orange OpenTech, we turn innovation into value, a value that scales, a value that creates tangible impact. Researchers, developers, partners, and clients, all together, we build safe services and solutions that feel simple, useful, human. We unleash trusted innovation that protects what matters. Because real innovation is not about power, it's about confidence, simplicity, and shared value. At Orange OpenTech, we open paths, we connect worlds, we turn innovation into lasting progress for each of us and for all. At Orange OpenTech 2025, we unleash the value.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of Orange OpenTech. Okay. I think we can do a little bit better than that. So hello and welcome to day 2 of Orange OpenTech. Oh, brilliant! Oh my word, fantastic! Thank you so much. Wow, the audience is electrifying here today. Good morning. I'm just as excited to be here as you. So good morning and welcome, everyone. Now, today we're going to be asking that crucial yet timely question: are we prepared for agentic AI to make choices while we still hold the reins? Now, look, with all the hype around autonomous AI, it's very easy to swing from utopian optimism to dystopian fear. But in that emotional swing blurs a far more exciting reality. You see, agentic AI frees us from the repetitive tasks, allowing humans to take greater control of their insight, creativity, and ethics where it matters. And basically, that balance shows up in the extraordinary technology that we're seeing today. We're seeing record valuations. We're seeing incredible work being done across the European tech sector. But alongside all of that excitement, there's also recognition that the long-term value depends on people. You heard me correct. That long-term value absolutely depends on people. And it's going to depend upon how we reskill, adapt, and also make that human contribution a lot more meaningful. And that's why Human in the Loop is also gaining significant traction across the industry. It's not just a design choice, it's a key principle that keeps people as collaborators and moral anchors in agentic systems. So as we explore today's panel session and how these systems are going to reshape the work and decision-making, let's cut through the noise. Let's be optimistic, but not naive. Let's also be honest, but realistic about where those risks lie and how we ensure that humans remain in control. Joining us on this panel session are Steve Jarett, Orange's Chief AI Officer, Usman Javaid, Chief Products and Marketing Officer at Orange Business, Karine Palacios, Chief Product Officer at Vocalcom, Alain Wozniak, Account Executive for Go-to-Market Strategies at Langchain, and I'm your host, Aman Abid. Please give the panelists a very warm welcome. Okay, good morning, everyone. So I really want to kick off this session by demystifying Agentic AI and looking at what makes these little digital brains tick. So we're going to cover some of the theory into the practice, hopefully setting the stage for what adaptation in real telco and customer experience wills. Usman, I'm going to start with you because you are driving a seriously AI-powered growth plan for Orange Business, and you're bringing in significant Gen AI returns for Orange B2B customers. I want to address the elephant in the room because we have to ask this question. Are we in an AI bubble right now?
Thanks, Aman. First of all, this is my first OpenTech, so I'm really bubbling with
Your first OpenTech, way! Oh.
And I would say I'm bubbling with excitement. Now, talking about the bubble. Well, I think the bubble is found between the demand and supply, and it's the vacuum that's created that creates the bubble or not. So let's talk about the demand first. Well, I think if you look at how many people use ChatGPT, for example, there are 800 million people. And how many years it took internet to get there is almost 13 years. What AI achieved in 3 years. So clearly there's a lot of demand. And I was in a university in south of France end of last week. And I asked a question that, raise your hand if you use an AI application once a month. And I have almost everybody raising their hand. And I said, drop your hand if you not use it every day. And very few people dropped the hand. And I look around in the room, and it was only the teachers who dropped the hand. So I think clearly the demand is there. If you look at enterprise, 80% of the enterprises are actually playing with the AI and doing something with it. Now look at the supply side of things, right? So there is a huge amount of investment. Yes, we have 400 billion of AI infrastructure investment just in this year. The returns are actually around 12 billion, so it's a very little return. So there's a lot of investment going on. But then if you look at the size of that investment is actually 17 times the investment that we have seen at the internet .com boom, right? So there's a lot of investment there. But then I think, yes, we are in a bubble, but when the bubble burst, and every bubble burst, so this bubble would burst as well. But I think what's more important is that what comes out of that bubble and what is the reality coming out of that bubble, and which is where I believe what we saw with the .com is, the emergence of social media, the emergence of, digital commerce and so on. We're going to get exactly the similar type of outcome. So I think it's going to be the age of intelligence. And I think the whole bubble is built on something concrete, which is the value that it's creating for people. I think for me, the more important point is the human cost of this hype. That is creating a lot of anxiety. I was talking to a customer who is a CIO of a large mining company in Africa. And he was saying, you know what, the train is leaving the station, and I better get on the train, but I'm not sure which one is the right train, right? And I think that's really important that the enterprises make the right choices as they need to just get started.
Well, okay, so it's really interesting about the fact that, we need to be very mindful of this bubble, but there were similar kind of concerns raised during the cloud era situation. And I'm kind of curious to understand, what are some of the lessons we can learn from the cloud era hype so we don't repeat them? And also, how do we turn some of those lessons into real agentic wins for today?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to compare the AI hype with cloud. And I was there at that moment. But I tell you, there was not much hype around cloud. If you think about cloud emerged in 2006 with AWS, and for 7-8 years, AWS was the undisputed leader for cloud. And then, and we didn't see many other enterprises follow up, large tech players, because that was disrupting their own business models. But then we saw that, thing moved on. So there was not as much of a hype as you see now or in the .com. However, I think there are many lessons that we can learn. I believe the first lesson we can learn is, we always overestimate whenever this big technical shift happens. We overestimate on short term and underestimate on long term. Right? I think when this cloud adoption was happening, everybody thought that everything is going to be on cloud. I mean, today, 40% roughly or 30% of the workloads are still not on cloud. And you don't have every application to be on the cloud, right? That's what you learn. And in the same way, when you have a hammer in the hand, everything looks like a nail. But that's not true for agentic, right? I mean, there's still space for some very basic if and else statements or for loops, and you don't need to solve every problem with agents. I believe the other lesson that you can learn is the fact that it's a technology wave, but the adoption is not just technology. It's about culture. It's about adopting, changing habits, which is the most difficult thing in any technology disruption. And we're talking about large enterprises who have got a lot of baggage to carry into the new world. And I like to say that they have a lot of shit of yesterday that they have to take into the future. And hence you see the emergence of new type of companies in each of those waves, right? Now we saw these cloud native companies. Now we see the AI native companies. These are the companies, they are creating code from AI from the very beginning. We have this Y Combinator that reported that 25% of their startups in the winter cohort had 95% of the code generated by AI, right? So I think we will always have these new companies who would be the first movers, but then I think it's the adoption is driven by the culture and the leadership and many other things. And finally, I think when we are in the hype, there are a lot of over-promises, right? When cloud came, everybody thought, it solved many problems around cost. Well, it helped with agility, it helped with innovation, but it not necessarily always helped with cost. Actually, it ended up, inflating the costs. So I think we need to be very careful on what promises will be met and which won't be. But I think what's important which is my learning, is that every sort of curve is built on the success of the previous curve. If you think about cloud is built on internet, and cloud paved the way to build large language models because that allow you to have large amount of data in one single place. And then LLM building the curve for agentic. And we are at a moment of creating a curve for something else, which would build on top of what we are doing.
Yeah, I just want to follow on the cloud era lesson. Steve, as Orange's Chief AI Officer, your team is building AI systems that are obviously transforming the everyday lives of our Orange customers. From following on from what Usman said, I'm really curious to understand about how does agentic AI break down those kind of complex tasks such that LLMs can actually act and reason on their own, and how do they do that to create real practical value?
Sure, really the breakthrough in agents is the idea that the model can take time to reason about how it wants to achieve a task. And the model has some autonomy in deciding what tools to use to solve that task. And so to your point about the bubble, I think that's the big change. As opposed to just using an enormous amount of computing power to train the AI models and a little bit of computing power to drive inference, the idea that the models are spending more and more time considering about the steps that they want to take to achieve a task, that's going to, I think, ensure that if the bubble bursts, there's still an enormous amount of value there. That's very different than what we saw before.
Yeah.
But to your point about how we're doing it internally, the way we think about agents is that they're best for tasks where you might want to create a draft first, and then have a person analyze, is the draft good or not? And so a parallel is very, very intelligent young programmers working for you, or young people in your team, who maybe who are prone to make mistakes, but they're very, very gifted. And so we really like the use cases where you allow the model to make a draft, to take time to think about suggestions, then the human in the loop, the person, gives feedback to the agent, and then it takes actions. And so what it means to be able to do that at scale, you need really good tooling that allows you to monitor and manage these agents at scale, regardless of what AI model you're choosing. Because it's hard to pick winners. Gemini just launched a new model yesterday. It seems really powerful, but it's very hard to predict these changes. So having tooling, like from LangChain, that allows us to do that at scale is really important.
And on that subject of human in the loop, Karine, it's great to have you with us. As the Chief Product Officer at Vocalcom, my understanding is that you're leading all the AI-driven for the customer experience. And this year, your Hermes 360 platform now serves in excess of 1,400 customers with advanced seamless omni-channel engagement, which actually brings me to the point regarding contact centers, because this is where we're seeing many of the routine tasks that are now being automated, but the complex interactions, I believe, still need people. So kind of like looking beyond that kind of automation hype, how do you actually make the human AI teamwork the true engine of efficiency? And I'm also curious to understand which of those human touch points are going to be crucial to prevent the AI echo chamber where the systems learn from their own outputs.
Right, so in contact centers and CX, customer experience, right, we've been using AI for quite a while. Why? Because what we sell are conversations. And AI, well, the second generation of AI, let's say, was very much about language, like NLP, Gen AI and whatever. So we've been using AI for a while for 4 things. Because for us, AI does 4 things, and they handily all start with an A, which for marketing is brilliant. So it's analyze, so it helps. Each of those 4 things are actually a domain where AI is actually assisting and helping someone, a persona within our business, right? So analyze. It helps supervisors, for example, to actually make sense of a gold mine, which so far they were sitting on without doing anything with it, which is customer conversation recordings, where you can understand, the performance of agent, the morale of agent, but also what customer thinks about your product, or, how good they think you are. So that's brilliant. Voice of the customer, we call it, So basically, this analyze things is really absolutely key, and we've been using AI for a while. Now with Agentic, it allows us to go even further and to automate processes based on that analysis, which takes me to the second A. Following? Right. The second A is anticipate. In fact, it's predict, but I needed an A. So I called it anticipate, right? So anticipate is about so the persona there is an administrator, which needs to actually design an hyper-personalized, this is the buzzword, right, in CX, customer journey, right, which understand for each contact, each person, each customer, what is the right channel, what is the right moment to engage, what is the right subject, product, proposition, you name it, right? And then what is the right human or machine to actually best talk, because we are talking in CX, right, to that person, right? That's anticipate. And then what we did in the late 2010, we said, okay, costs are going to be reduced there. Our biggest cost is bump on seats. This is what BPOs are talking about, so agents, people, right? I need to figure out how we're going to actually call AI agent, because it don't really have a bump. So, I don't know how we're going to do that, but well. So our biggest cost is agent. So let's automate as many conversations as possible. To be very honest, it was a real disaster. A lot of brands at the early stage of AI, NLP, actually destroyed their brand loyalty and customer satisfaction because of, let's say, going too far into automation. Then we went back a bit and realized that only routine task or routine conversation, or let's say low emotion conversation, could actually be automated. And then there's the fourth one, right? So, and in automation, we did that for text first, because that was easier. And now, to be honest, we're getting serious at voice automation, because the technology is getting much better at voice bots, or virtual agent, whatever we call it. So last A is about assist. So I hate augment. I just don't want to say that AI is augmenting people. It's not. It's helping people, right? So basically, maybe some people would disagree with me, but well. So assist, help. I'm Spanish, so in French and Spanish, aider ou ayudar start with an A as well, which is great. So basically, so assist, right? Basically, what is the deal there? Well, why would we invest so much money in getting rid of people when they are our most valuable asset, right? Instead of helping them with AI to make them more efficient. So assist is about getting back on track with that and investing to help people. So as you can see, in the contact center industry and the CX industry, we've been asking AI to collaborate with human for quite a while. And that's what is making the difference. The fact that we can do better, things that we have done for a while, right? Easier, more efficient, but without losing one thing, which is that today, still, even if Agentic can do things better than it could before, more complex processes and conversation, it's still human that are the hero of your brand, of your loyalty, and of your differentiation.
Yeah. Which is a perfect opportunity for me to jump in and introduce Alain, because obviously listening to this conversation, you can obviously hear that there are some concerns. Karine highlighted that point about some of the brands had actually had a negative impact from using some of these agents. Obviously, we're very thrilled to have you here. LangChain, for those of you that don't know LangChain has become a major force in enterprise AI. I believe you guys have just reached unicorn status as of October this year with a $1.25 billion valuation. For those newer to the platform, can you just briefly explain how companies are using your tools, for example, like in the example that Karine has said, and how they're using your tools to turn AI reasoning into reliable and, more importantly, impactful action?
Thanks, and definitely will do. Excited to be here, awesome. And indeed, as you mentioned, for those who don't know LangChain, 2 years ago, just before the launch of ChatGPT, where now even my dear grandmother uses AI these days, just before that, our founder released libraries in order to allow engineers to build AI apps with open source. So obviously, in this whole buzz that we're now experiencing, our organization has been able to grow significantly. And going back to the points that were just mentioned, it is not only about creating funny images or creating new text anymore with AI. So what our software in that realm can add, for example, is that we need to build agents that have the ability to connect with people, to allow people to interact with those agents, not only in the beginning when we're giving them the orders, but also in between to check if everything goes well. And next to this, these agents need to connect with live data. They need to connect with business processes, with APIs, and many other components. So this is actually where software, obviously I speak in front of LangChain, but also other software providers hook into and allow technology to support with actually crafting these components to build AI agents that make impact for your business.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we've kind of set the foundations here for Agentic AI, and I'd like to shift into action, looking at how these systems are actually going to streamline operations for real efficiency wins while keeping the reins very tight. And a question for you, Steve, given that the medium-sized models are now increasingly seen as now that sweet spot for efficient inference, how do you think they're going to help AI how do you think they're going to help AI to become more sustainable and actually more importantly, scalable when it comes to real-world operations?
Sure. What's interesting is that because this use case of agents is so popular, the large language models now are being trained specifically to act on agentic tasks. And what we see is that there's an enormous amount of innovation in that kind of medium-sized models from 7 billion to let's say, south of 20 billion parameters. And many of those models are open weight. And so what's appealing there is with Usman's team, we can offer sovereign solutions that don't have to run on a public cloud. Of course, there are some use cases that are really extremely demanding that require a larger model, but having that flexibility is really appealing. And we love the fact that there's so much innovation in this domain of open source models, not only from some of the big providers like OpenAI, who has an open weight model now, but especially in China, where we see an enormous amount of efficiency work there. And so I think that's enabling us to, as you were saying as well, you don't always have to use the sledgehammer of a massive tool for every single problem. So having that range of solutions available to us, from on technology platforms that allow us to be either run on public cloud or on sovereign cloud, with tools that allow us to solve many different kinds of problems, regardless of what the model type is. That allows us to make these trade-offs between what kind of tool we want to use, because we want to be responsible. We want to use the right tool for the right problem. That's economically responsible, and it's also ecologically responsible.
Thank you, Steve. Usman, I'm going to come to you because I really want to focus on looking at some of the key B2B wins that are basically being powered, and also how they connect the world beyond the enterprise. Just for the audience, could you just spotlight a couple of early B2B wins from perhaps large enterprises down to the SMPs? And also, I'm very curious how they help to ramp up productivity and resilience when it comes to real-world operations.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm sure that you have all read this MIT study which said that 95% of the enterprise have not seen the return on investment, and I believe what we have seen is that enterprises have seen the productivity gains, they have not seen the return on investment, and these are the two different expectations. And we have seen, use cases that goes all the way from job line use cases, which are quite horizontal, to industry-specific use cases like, drug discovery or predictive maintenance or, claims management and so on. But I believe there are three set of areas which are really driving scale and productivity gains. I think the first is generally about employee productivity, right? If you just think about all of us as employees, right, we spend roughly 20% of our weekly time looking for information, which is just waste of productivity because we're just looking for knowledge. And how we can make knowledge more accessible to employees so that they can make faster decisions. And that's what we have seen with lots of use cases around HR, around finance, around contracts management, legal, and so on and so forth. Right, that's some major productivity gain driver using some of those tools. I think the second area which Karine was talking about is the customer experience and generally about the customer support functions. And and that goes all the way from large enterprises to the small medium enterprises. Talking about large enterprises, I completely agree with Karine that you need to make sure that your brand is on by by a human interaction, which has got the empathy to offer, which is what those tools will not be able to offer. But what you need to do is to really, you don't want to use the word augment, but you need to really assist those humans to be able to better do their job. And what does it mean to do their job better? I give you one example. We saw that we had a long wait time in the calls. When the human agent talking to the customer, long wait time because looking for information, trying to find the best next action and so on. And using some of the agentic tools, we were able to reduce that time by 32%. So when the time reduced by 32%, it's a productivity gain. It's a better customer experience because no customer want to be on the call for long, right? So I think that's type of use cases where we are seen where we call this, agent assist type use cases, and then you can sort of expand that going into multiple agents helping the human to do their jobs better. And then on the SMB side, I mean, if you think about an SMB, think about as a boulangerie or as a corner shop or a plumbing shop, what you want to do is to do, your métier, your topic, your expertise better. You don't want to you want somebody to take your orders and so on, and which is where we have seen AI doing more like a concierge service. It's like an assistant who can take calls, who can book appointments, who can get more work for you, and then you just focus on what you do well. So we have seen a lot of those use cases in that domain. And finally, I think the third area is about generally the infrastructure build-up or the software development. We have seen a number of enterprise customers who use some of those agentic tools, and they have seen gains from 2 to 10x in terms of efficiency with regards to software development and agentic ops and so on.
Great, thank you. I'd like to move to you, Karine, because my understanding is that, obviously in these contact centers, you've got the AI, which is basically handling all of that preparation and the follow-up tasks, while it's the humans that are actually focusing on the high-value interactions. Now, actually, some would argue that full automation is surely cheaper, whereas others are saying that hybrid models actually yield better long-term loyalty, I should say. I'm curious to understand what's your viewpoint here. Can collaboration between humans and AI actually deliver both efficiency as well as differentiation?
I guess it's about taking into account the whole business case. Because people talk, as you were saying before, we've seen the cost efficiency, but maybe not the ROI. And if we want to actually understand the ROI, we need also to understand the impact on revenue. And the impact on revenue goes through the impact of on customer loyalty and share of wallet. So basically, it's about a balance. If I take an analogy, if you allow me.
Yep, by
right?
all means.
You know, the other day, I went to my ophthalmologist, right? And it just struck me that this was so similar to what I have to automate or orchestrate in CX. I give you an example. I came in there, and there is a very nice lady that takes my insurance card and, you know, take all of my details. So this is a bit like, you know, the pre-call or whatever. So basically the preparation, which was quite routinary, right? Then I went to a nurse, an eye nurse. So she took basic measures with my eyes, right? And then I went to the doctor. I have known him forever. So basically he said, well, how is it getting there now? Wow, you're getting 1 point less or whatever. He asked about my mother, my kids, my dog. Well, no. Right. So basically, you know, I got like the complex and emotionally loaded experience with the doctor. And then after that, I went back to the young lady at the front desk who actually, you know, gave me the recipe and the prescription, sorry, it's in English, right? And then, you know, got me to pay, right? So if you think about it, in contact centers and CX now, it's a bit like this. What we have is like pre-call, basically, can be automated. We can actually qualify a call, and it's not only inbound. On outbound, what we're trialing right now in Vocalcom is to have an agent that is asking you, are you happy to talk to someone? So that, you know, the agents are not getting a lot of rejection, insults, you name it, right? And we preserve the morale of our agents, which are our most valuable assets, again. And then, you know, after that, you know, we've got the expert, and that's a human, most of the time, right, that talks to the customer. And then after that, we can gain huge efficiency in post-call assistance, as you were saying, Usman, which is reducing that time, which is not very productive, where the agent or the human advisor used to actually send an email to confirm, give you the prescription, or you name it, right? That can be totally automated today with Agentic. So it's hybrid, by definition. And this is the way to actually reconcile efficiency, but also, you know, revenue through customer satisfaction and brand loyalty, I think.
And that's a really interesting point. You know, if I can come to you, Alain, because I think what Karine has really described is all the complexities that take in place, whether you go for collaboration or basically hybrid model, and some of the concerns that we also need to be aware of. Now, obviously, LangChain is working with a large number of enterprise customers building these very so-called multi-agent systems. Looking at from your vantage point, you know, what are you seeing are going to be like the biggest challenges? For example, like members in the audience will need to take into consideration when building these heterogeneous or multi-agent systems.
Yeah, and I really like your example, Karine, because it illustrates that you will nail it. You will in the end build these agents helping you for these processes. But the main challenge is it is quite hard actually to build reliable and production-ready agents. There's a lot of complexity behind the scenes. So a step lower when we look into the complexity, one of the complexities with orchestration of these more complex agents is that all the intermediate step of these sub-agents eventually need to be fine-tuned. They need to be orchestrated, coordinated. They need a handoff. There need to be memory allocated. It needs to collaborate. So it's quite tough, actually. And the second thing that you might end up with, and definitely with organizations like Orange and yours as well, big organizations, multiple teams, multiple countries, multiple languages, is that you also need a way to do some observability of all of this. Because if you have all of these agents running, and things go wrong, things drift, it accumulates. So you need to, in a very limited amount of time, be able to recognize where the issues is. But I think we will do it and we will make it work, but there's some complexity that we must not ignore.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so far we've laid the foundations for Agentic. We've talked about some of the real wins. I really want to now get on to one of the most important topics, and something which I'm also passionate about, is about, once we've unlocked this efficiency, what's going to be the cost? And I really want to look at some of the guardrails that we're going to be put in place to kind of make sure that our AI systems, or the AI systems that we're dealing with, are reliable and ethical. And Steve, I really need to come to you on this question, because I think one of the concerns that we're seeing in the industry is basically the biggest risk concerning hallucination, the convincing hallucinations in AI. And from your perspective, how do you think we can keep human in the loop oversight to basically manage this, to complement to keep AI both trustworthy but also resource efficient at scale, so these systems just don't go off on a tangent?
Yeah, I mean, hallucinations is just innate behavior of these large language models today. And so the risk is when you have the agent have some autonomy in taking decisions, it can not only make mistakes, but it can also do things like consume a lot of power and money. And so having the ability to have good control when you design the agent is, when do you want to have a person involved? When do you want to have a human in the loop? And so we do that in a way that's responsible, which is ensuring that we're careful about the CO2 consumption and the money consumption, and identifying clearly when it's appropriate for people to have observation of the agent. We actually call that co-intelligence. And so I think it's really related to the use cases you described. And for us, in use cases where we deploy agents, whether it's in customer care, when there's these clear points at which you want to be able to have a human involved and aiding the human, but it also applies to use cases like in the network, when we want to have a draft or a consideration of a potential change in the network. We want to be able to evaluate that draft by a human, and then take the next step and do a test and so on. And so this notion that you're taking these very gradual steps with agents, you're taking the fact that they have this power of evaluating tools and having some autonomy, but at the same time, you have to have human in the loop. For us, that's co-intelligence.
Thank you, Steve. Karine, coming to you, like Steve talked about having, these systems are inevitably going to scale. So my question for you is that, do you think that human oversight is going to be still important at those key moments to ensure that it's going to be the best defense against bias and quality drift? And also, like, how on earth are you going to scale this, not just across teams, but across global markets?
So what is really interesting with AI is that it comes with the tools to supervise it, which is great. Because if we think about, for example, voice bots or IVA, whatever we call it, so those voice AI agents that are talking to customers, or even the chat bots, right? Where we can see that more and more the new products that we're using in CX come with a very sophisticated dashboard for controlling, understanding their efficiency, but also their compliance, with not only regulatory compliance, but also brand image compliance and so on. You can actually configure that. So that's one guardrail where, with limited a number of supervisors, which is a scalability issue, thanks to the monitoring tool of AI agents, right, you can actually control them as we have always supervised human agents, right? And that takes me to the second example, where we basically, what we are trying now is to introduce in our human advisors pools what we call digital twins. So basically those guys, or those AI agents, are actually mirrored or twinned with a human, which they listen to so that they improve, okay? And we also supervise them, which means that, so for example, we've got, I don't know if I can code it, but we've got a POC right now with 11 labs, with some agents, because they're very good at many languages, right? Where we've got those digital twins in the agent pool, and our supervisors, human supervisors, right, are actually listening to the agents, whether they're AI or human. And then we compare. And then we get them to listen more so that they can be better twins with the same skills as the agent. Objective being not to replace the human agent, but to get co-intelligence within the CX pool. And if we have too many AI agents compared to human, they're going to go into the echo chamber.
Right, okay.
Which means they're going to learn from each other, and that's not going to go well. Because the freshness of the knowledge, but also the method and whatever, comes from the humans. So that's one of the examples that we like best. And the last thing is basically that with real-time supervision, we can coach AI. So the supervisor can come into the call between an AI person, an AI agent and a person, and actually say, hey, I'm the supervisor. I'm going to take over this call and talk to you both. So we now have a human-human machine model where two humans are talking with an agent. The agent is learning. Also, the customer or the supervisor can learn things, because let's not forget that those AI agents can push knowledge, as you were saying, because we don't want the agent to be talking to the customer and looking for the last article about a product. That's gone. Now it's the AI that does that for our human advisors.
It's really explaining the issues regarding scaling and all the factors we need to take into consideration. I mean, Usman, you've heard what Karine mentioned. That's really a complex environment where we've got AI, human, and we're scaling markets, scaling across teams as well. Like, from your perspective on the enterprise deployments, I mean, what do you think is holding us back from moving from a handful of agents to, for the example that Karine is giving, like hundreds of agents?
Yeah, and I believe what's holding us back is the trust deficit. I was talking to a chief digital officer of one of the world's largest humanitarian organizations, and she was saying that she has got this, agentic tool, and employees are using that, and that's running somewhere in the public cloud. And she said, you know what, this is complete black box to me. I can ask a question, I could get an answer. I'm not sure if the answer is ethical, responsible, or not. Whether I can trust, is that hallucinated or not, right? So, I mean, we of course have many guardrails and many other things, but it's still a black box. And I believe that is the biggest challenge of adoption. And if you sort of, reconstruct this black box, actually it happens at the LLM level, the large language model or the language model, and also it happens at the agentic level. Now, if you think about the language models, and especially with the open source, is great, we have open source models, but at the same time, we have around 2 million language models on huggingface.com, which means that those models have got a lot of vulnerabilities, lots of challenges, things are not properly tested, so that expose the risk. And those models can be easily jailbreak. Now, the approach the hackers are using is not brute force those models. It's actually having a conversation with those models and building trust with those models, asking a lot of questions so that the models start trusting you as a real user. And then you start manipulating the guardrails in order to be able to hack those systems. So Cisco published a research which said that when you do a multi-attempt hacking of prompt hacking to those models, the success rate is around 92% for most of the open source models that are available today. So the black box at the language models, then comes the next black box, which I believe is at the agentic space, right? Where you create an agent, you let it go and do the work. Are you sure it's doing what you expected it to do? How you make sure that it's doing the things that you expect this to do? So I think this whole trust deficit is actually, holding the adoption. And if you cannot trust something, it would not happen. And I believe one of the challenge is the fact that as you see those technologies getting into the hands of bad actors, the trust deficit even get further created. Just think about the risk of deepfake, right? With Sora 2 and with 11 Labs you mentioned, Karine, 31%, I saw a research, 31% of people are not able to identify a fake video versus a real video. They don't know it's a fake video, 31% of people, which means they end up going to trust those videos. And if they end up trusting those videos, where this is going, right? So I think there is a big responsibility, and I would say it's a humanity at danger of this trust deficit of that technology that we need to get right.
Yeah, and I think some of those technologies to kind of mitigate that that trust deficit is most really where LangChain is going to come into play, because you're working on large-scale deployments, and you heard some of the key concerns that Usman has raised. So, you know, what is the role of the platform? What is the tools that LangChain are going to be providing to mitigate this trust deficit and also to monitor agent behavior and at the end of the day strengthen this overall trust that's much needed in these systems?
Yeah, I really appreciated these insights on concerns, these topics of black boxes. And we need to distinguish two parts. You have indeed the LLMs, the models. Our technology allows you to use whatever model you need, so that's something out of our control. You decide yourself what model you use, your own models that you get from others. But the agent itself, that's a black box that we are able to unfold. So with our technology, for example, we have the ability to run the agents, multi-complex, super-duper agents, and up till trace level, so every intermediate step this agent is doing, reaching to a database, reacting on a prompt, running, connecting to data sets, all these intermediate steps, we can expose them until trace level in dashboards and report on those. And we don't only expose them, we can also save them in log files in order for you to do audit trails, etc. So we really have the mechanisms in place. And it's also needed. We get this feedback a lot from enterprises, and it's holding them back to massive adoption. So observability until trace level is really important in order to be compliant. And the second thing is that as part of these agents, we also allow humans to step in. Already at prompt level, so we also save different prompt versions for you to revisit if needed, but also along the way. If we need to apply rules, we can add them with evaluations. We can have human in the loop to check those. So all of these governance mechanisms were not there when we started 2 years ago as open source, but have been added over the last couple of periods, exactly because this worry is really important and hold us back.
Great, thank you, Alain. So with those guardrails in place, I'd like to now switch gears again and try to talk about some of the upside that we're kind of creating here, and also how do agentic choices personalize customer experience for revenue. Usman, coming to you, where are enterprises winning today in translating AI into real productivity gains?
Yeah, maybe I can give a couple of real customer examples. I think one example is one of the largest utility company in Europe. And you think about there is a heavy job for the field technicians who need to go out and get the work done. And those field technicians have different level of expertise and the different types of complexity that they face in the field. And they need to be supported. So, and some of those field technicians have to do a lot of administrative work while actually they're trying to do the job. So I think the concept that we sort of really leverage with our customers is this human, not in the loop, but actually human on the loop, which means you can actually delegate some of the tasks that you are supposed to do, which are not what you enjoy, is the administrative task. It's not really the most valuable ad for you. You can actually pass on to an agent. For example, in this particular customer example, you know, when the field technician finished the job, they have to submit a work completion report. Now, we estimated that there were 90 minutes a week which was spent in terms of, you know, writing down this work completion report after each work was done and submitting that into the workforce management system. If we can have an agent to do that on your behalf, and you just, you know, and just the agent observe you what you have done and then do it on your behalf, actually it's a lot of savings of time. So it's 90 minutes saved every week. And then on top of that, you know, sometimes you get stuck with the job that you're doing and then you have to do truck rolls and you have to come back. Well, in that case, you can have live assistance with an agent who can actually, you know, remotely be able to guide you and you can show the videos and so on, right? So I think these type of use cases, we have seen other use cases with one of the largest banks in France, actually, they wanted to leverage AI for their software development. So they wanted to build this coding assistant. Now the challenge that they have is that most of those tools that are there for agentic software development, your code has to go outside Europe. And that is, think about a very, sensitive systems and the software running in that, you cannot afford it. So we help them to deploy some, coding models into our sovereign cloud and help them to build this coding assistant. We had another municipality and a public sector customers. They don't have a large HR department, and they have got 3,500 employees. So, and the employees were not satisfied because they're not getting the support. And most of the employee questions are basics, right? Can I have this reference letter? Can I have got my pay slips, right? The basic stuff. We created an HR assistant for them, and that assistant is taking 90% of the employee queries. Right? These are basic use cases that have a massive impact in terms of people satisfaction, productivity gains, and so on.
Thank you. Karine, coming to you, and again, focusing on the upside here, we're seeing that hyper-personalization is transforming the engagement by matching, the right moment on the right channel with the right advisor. I mean, in your view, how is agentic AI making that precision possible while respecting consent?
So in our world, consent is key, because I don't know if you're aware, people working in contact center here must be. In August 2026, there is a new law in France. And to be honest, I think a lot of European countries and even non-European countries are going to follow, which say that you cannot contact people by any channel if they haven't told you that they agree with that. Whereas before, you could call them unless they had told you no, which is very different, right? So it's a very big challenge, because they can give you their consent through any channel, but they can revoke their consent by any channel and in an unstructured manner. And you need to take that into account immediately. So what does that mean? And to be very honest, I think it's a good thing, because there has been very intrusive campaign, and I'm selling, predictive campaign tools, but this is true, that basically it has not been good actually for customer acceptation of brand engagement. So now we're getting into a world where the prerequisite to talk to people is that they agree. So in order, AI is helping us tremendously, because you can listen to conversation, you can have AI analyzing any conversation, forms, tick in the box and whatever, in whatever channels, really easily, so that you can centralize that consentment, or so opt-in or opt-out, right, at any moment in time, so that in real time, you know who you can talk to and how. So that prerequisite is being done with the help of AI, which is tremendous, to be very honest. I think it would have been impossible to comply with that law without stopping talking to anybody, right, without the help of AI. Then the second thing is that now that you've got that consent, you can actually, what we call hyper-personalize, and here, Agentic AI is really giving me a very warm feeling that this is going to be possible, really possible, to orchestrate a dynamic, customer journey with at the right touch point, the right moment. You can choose the right channel according to Agentic AI, going to fetch data from multiple applications, databases, sense to its ability to actually use whatever APIs it has. Right? We say that agentic is as good as your APIs, but that's another story. But basically, this will allow us to do that dream of hyper-personalization. But of course, let's make sure that we also use AI first to be compliant, and also that we don't go get data that we're not allowed to.
Right. Coming to you, Steve, building on that CRM, updating agents for smarter customer insights, how do you think agentic AI is going to revolutionize a super app like Orange's Maxit in Middle East Africa?
So that's a great example. For those of you that aren't aware, Maxit is an incredibly popular service provided by Orange across Middle East and Africa. And in fact, here at the show, we're showing the notion that you can use Wolof, which is a regional African language spoken in Senegal and neighboring countries, to interact with the application. And so, independently of agents, the work that we've been doing at Orange to customize AI models to understand these regional languages that otherwise don't understand, really is not just a point about increasing the productivity of people, but it's bridging the digital gap for people who are illiterate or who only speak these regional languages that are kind of left behind today by AI models. And so we see that as a foundation for us to be able to then offer agentic features there. And again, for me, it's not just the productivity improvement potential for agents, But it's, again, the digital divide opportunity, where being able to give an agent the capability of using tools and APIs to solve problems for people in their everyday life that they would really struggle to do otherwise. And so I think Maxit for us is this great opportunity to really improve the daily lives of these people that I think otherwise would be left behind.
Great, thank you. We've got less than 6 minutes left, and I've still got a few questions to get through. Look, I want to in these last few minutes, I actually want to take a step slightly into the future here, because I'd like to understand, or maybe perhaps give the audience a taste of what a symbiotic future awaits us with AI choices amplifying us under human reins. Steve, you used this term co-intelligence earlier, which is really interesting. Could you help explain how that vision actually relates to Orange's move towards full agentic AI?
Sure. When we think about this is when we work with the teams to design agent-based systems, we say, what is the part of your job that you love to do and where you think all the value is? And that's where we build systems to aid them. And then we ask them, what are the parts of their jobs that they think are really boring or they don't like to do? And then we automate those. And so I think that approach of having the software agents work in concert with people on great tooling allows us to have these great solutions for people that they're very happy with, to have included in their day-to-day work life, and where they also have a clear sense of control. And so striking that balance, that's what we call co-intelligence.
Great, thank you. Alain, coming to you. It was interesting listening to Bruno Zabib's opening speech yesterday, because he was talking about that potentially that the future skills needed for tomorrow are going to be in the realms of physics and mathematics. Looking at some of the tooling that LangChain is actually creating, and you're on that precipice, could you just let the audience know what kind of skill sets do you think are actually actively needed today, and what you see being those skill sets for tomorrow to build AI frameworks?
Yeah, so we first need to distinguish that there's multiple levels of engineering. So what technology these days, including our platform, offers is that we allow no-code business users to build their agents. But going back to the more complex use cases that still require a bit of coding, you would need to think about, for example, the ability to code, do prompt engineering, context engineering, of course, but also having an understanding about systems and about orchestration, as I mentioned before, because only in order to be able to understand how these systems interact with each other, with integration, with APIs, with different data sets, with humans, that part of thinking will also be needed amongst architecture and these kinds of additional requirements that will be needed besides the regular engineering capabilities.
Great, thank you. And Usman, when we reach the limits of full agency, what do you think a Henry Ford moment for augmentation is going to look like? And how do you think that's going to reshape jobs and, more importantly, amplify what people themselves can accomplish? Sorry for the loaded question.
It's a very difficult question. I think, for me, the Henry Ford moment would come when we reimagine the world with AI. And I think bolting on existing business processes with AI is not give us the value that we expect. So I think we need to have a step back and reimagine. And we're not looking for a faster horse. We're looking for a car. And that's the world we need to reimagine. Now, I think we need to think about the end game. And my view about the end game is that, AI is going to absorb a lot of mediocrity and is going to magnify the excellence. And as it happens, I think we need to make sure that the word still in our panel I don't like, because we need to make sure that human hold the rein as we get there. Because as the technology gets better, it has to serve humans and not the other way around. So I think, and the progress would mean nothing, if it leaves the humans behind.
Great, thank you. And Karine, just very briefly coming to you, I'm asking you to look 12, 18 months in the future, and the role that humans will play in customer experience, especially as AI becomes a lot more capable. How can we design these systems so they are ethical, but also improve efficiency? And also, my favorite question, how is it going to enrich human work and well-being?
We are right now seeing a disruption where, to be honest, we don't have the answer, but it's a bit like what Usman was saying about we need to make sure that we hold the rein. So what we see is that, for example, in the US, ChatGPT is actually establishing partnerships with Walmart and brands and some other distributors, because, you know, we might see a world where each of you here, each of us, will have a personal assistant which is going to shop or give calls for customer service. So what's going to happen? If your AI assistant is actually calling a brand, do you think that the brand will keep a human at the other side? No. Basically, personal assistant will bring AI agent on the other side. They're going to talk MCP together, right? So now, how do we maintain our ability to understand customer behavior, insight, to actually bring loyalty, empathy, whatever? This is still to be defined. How will human, you know, become a premium? Human engagement will become a premium with like excellence, you know? We don't know, but basically, we need to make sure that we keep control of that trend, because at the moment, you know, in CX, in the European Association of CX, we see that as a big revolution for us.
Great, thank you. We're just approaching the end, and I just want to end on final thoughts. So, Alain, final thoughts for today.
Very simple. Everybody will be building AI now or in the next months, so better get used to it and make use of it.
Well, for me, the train is leaving the station, so better get on the train, take a bit of a platform approach, and you need somebody to support you, so Orange Business is here.
And I think really what is important about AI is using it in a way that is responsible, both to your company's business, but also to the ecology. And I think co-intelligence is the way that we're going to get there to really achieve great value from AI, but in a way that people feel like it's a really useful, constructive part of their daily lives, including their work lives.
And I've just asked Steve if I could borrow co-intelligence because I love it, right? And I haven't found it myself, right? So I will exchange 4 A's against co-intelligence, because I totally agree that, you know, what the point with 8 billion people on this planet and soon 10 billion to replace them with AI agents? I don't get it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, I'd like to thank Alain, I'd like to thank Usman, Steve, and Karine, and thank you all for attending this session. Thank you very much. If you guys just
Happy party on the rooftop. All my friends get their groove on. All eyes on me when I'm walking. The fairy tale I'm glowing. Getting ready to be the one. Every girl dreams to hang on. Pampering me for the night out. Killing it, shining bright.